Hey guys, welcome back. So this week we're actually going to be talking about different sources of protein. Last week we talked about how to judge the quality of your protein to really assess what you're getting for a bang for your buck. This week we're talking about different sources. So we will talk about the three different kinds of whey protein that you see. There's some other ones as well too. I'm talking about the major common ones such as a whey isolate, a whey casein, and a whey concentrate. We're also going to talk about vegan protein a little bit, some soy protein, as well as egg white protein too. So if you missed last week's video, check out the link down at the bottom. You can actually watch that video if you haven't yet, just to get caught up. But as far as this week, I wanted to start out with whey protein. They seem to be the most common. There's some misleading, and I've actually been trained wrong in the past by different companies about how to sell certain whey proteins. So there's a lot of myths out there regarding whey protein in general. To break it down, there's the whey isolate, which is usually sold as a post-workout. It's sold as being a higher quality protein. It's usually sold along with weight loss products as well because it usually has less calories. Whey isolate, think of it as a more filtered whey protein. So you get a lot of those impurities out. The downside of that is you actually lose peptides. So peptides are branches of amino acids. And so amino acids are combined together to form a peptide. Peptides have different health benefits. There's tons of different peptides out there. When you filter the protein more, you also can break down those peptides, which have their own health benefits as well. So when you're looking as far as health benefits, it really depends on your own goals. So just keep that in mind that when you do break down whey protein more into an isolate form, you lose those peptides. Now, regarding a whey isolate for weight loss, I see it sold a lot of the times. I was trained by a company in the past to sell it in a weight loss program, which is really misleading. It's really not one of the best proteins to be sold in a weight loss program. The reason why, since whey isolates are actually broken down more, they're a pure form of protein, which is really, really good for people trying to recover from exercise. So it can be coupled with weight loss and exercise. But I've seen it sold as a meal replacement in the morning. The problem with that with whey isolates is since they're broken down to be absorbed quickly, they don't really control appetite as well as other proteins do. So even other whey proteins like the whey casein and the whey concentrate. So what we see with that is people who take whey isolate usually are more hungry quicker. So they look good on a label because they usually have less calories, but again, you're also losing those peptides, which have other health benefits as well. So when taking a whey isolate, since it does absorb quicker, it also spikes blood sugar quicker. So a lot of people, when they hear the term blood sugar, look at diabetics. Diabetics are always concerned with blood sugar. They're concerned about spiking their insulin. Now, for someone trying to lose weight, they should still be concerned with blood sugar. Obviously, it's not as dangerous to their health as someone who's diabetic. But what can happen is anytime blood sugar spikes, it can release a hormone called insulin, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of by now with all the different commercials out there for different ways to test for insulin and blood sugar levels. But what insulin does, insulin is a hormone that helps control blood sugar levels. So if you spike it, what insulin's job is to take extra blood sugar, so the glucose in your blood, and convert it to fat. So it's a common misconception. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. It's having a high blood sugar count, and it's really eating in excess. So that's what's going to cause you to gain fat. So looping back around to these whey protein isolates that are sold for weight loss. What I see happen sometimes is if they're not eating it in a balanced meal, such as with another carbohydrate and a fat. Now, carbohydrates also can spike blood sugar. Fats are really good at controlling spikes in blood sugar. Regarding isolates in general, since they are more of a protein that's made to be digested very quickly for recovery most of the time, they're really targeted better for people post-workout. That doesn't mean they're not good for weight loss. They're not good as meal replacements though, because with this blood sugar spike, you're releasing insulin since they are digested so quickly because that's their purpose. So then you have to look at the whey isolate compared to whey concentrate. So a lot of people compare the two, which one's better. So again, it depends on what your goals are. Whey concentrates have more intact peptides most of the time compared to whey isolates. These peptides have a ton of different health benefits. I'm not going to get into those too much now. Some help spike muscle growth. Others are really good for your immune system, your digestive tract. There's all kinds of different uses for peptides. With whey isolates, you lose a lot of those peptides. That being said, there are studies showing for the benefits of exercise and especially weightlifting, that whey isolates do actually have an increase in the ability to recover from exercise. So basically what that means is isolates have been shown to be better at recovering post-workout. Now that can actually be due to the blood sugar spike as well too, because you're also then shuttling nutrients in your cells quicker for recovery. So isolates have been shown to be better. Now, the actual difference between an isolate and a concentrate as far as muscle recovery and muscle growth is very, very minute. It is measurable. It's very minute though. So what I mean by that is, even though you can measure the difference between the two, what you're seeing is the difference sometimes really doesn't make up the price difference. So the issue we have with that is, since it does cost more, it's usually costing between $10 to $15 more per bottle on average that I see. And the benefits over the year, again, they are measurable, but most of the time when people don't have their diets right and they start taking an isolate post-workout compared to just a regular protein and the rest of their diet's completely way off, it's really hard for those people to see benefits. So me personally, and this is a personal opinion, I can't justify the reason of paying the extra cost for our whey isolates when I get additional health benefits from a whey concentrate. Now, as far as proteins being denatured, a lot of people talk about applying heat and those proteins being denatured. They're really referring to the peptides that we just talked about. So peptides can be denatured. They can be broken down into their amino acids. That being said, that really doesn't have an effect on muscle mass and muscle recovery and your protein to be used towards muscle mass. Amino acids, specifically leucine, are great at triggering muscle protein synthesis, so really the creation of more muscle and its ability to recover. So as far as denaturing protein in regards to muscle mass, there really hasn't been any proven data really showing that I've seen. If you guys have any studies, please let me know, because I haven't seen those. But I did a lot of research in denaturing protein, and when protein is denatured, it's in regards to those peptides, which have different health benefits. So a lot of people point to isolates being a better protein, being a better source of protein, but again, we're losing those peptides there. So in regards to the absorption of proteins as well too, isolates, the studies I've seen, most amino acid spikes in blood from an isolate happen within about an hour. So what that means is you see the greatest spike of amino acids in your blood, which are the building blocks of protein, in about an hour. That then dies down over a period of time, and it will go back to a normal level. Now, most of the studies, when they're testing this, it's people on a fasted diet. So they look at their amino acids in their blood before taking it. Usually after like a 10-hour fast, they take away isolates. Isolates have actually been shown to spike amino acids in blood, not only the quickest, but also at the highest percentage as well too. So that's really great for recovery. Whey concentrates also shared a similar spike. It took a little bit longer. They did last longer in blood though as well too. So it took longer for those amino acids to return to normal, which is a good thing. It means you have those proteins in your blood for a longer period of time. We also then have whey casein, which we'll touch on a little bit more in a second. But whey casein took the longest to spike. It had the lowest percentage of spike, but it also had the longest duration. So when you really break it down, overall, the benefits between a whey concentrate and whey isolate are kind of balanced, but it's really depending on goals. Like I said, I can't find a reason to justify paying the additional for a whey isolate over a concentrate. I didn't see a huge benefit when I have switched in the past. I've switched multiple times trying to notice a big difference. I really never did. Now, going back to the peptides we talked about, there are ways to maintain peptides in whey isolates. It's usually more expensive. And again, that's why it's kind of hard for me to justify, hey, if I do get a whey isolate that is filtered through cross-flow filtration, which is a process that does help maintain those peptides, ends up costing more. And so when I can get that in a regular whey concentrate, now yes, I do get a little bit more carbs, a little bit more fat, and sometimes a little bit more cholesterol as well too, really depending on the protein. I just can't justify the reason personally of buying a whey isolate. Doesn't mean they're not beneficial. There's studies proving that they are beneficial post-workout. If they cost the same price, I'd be all for taking a whey isolate post-workout, but there's usually a very significant difference in price for everything I've seen. And now the purest forms of whey isolate you can get are filtered through ion exchange, and then you'll also see the hydrolyzed isolates as well. These are some of the purest forms of protein you can get, but again, these will cause a loss in peptides. The cross-filtration doesn't, which you can usually see. Most companies do label on the back because they're proud and want to brag about, hey, we use this method to retain these peptides. So it does cost more. The ion exchange and the hydrolyzed protein isolates will be the purest form, but again, you're losing those peptides. So another benefit as well, if you have any issues with lactose, you will have more benefits with these whey isolates as well. So whey isolates usually have less lactose because they are filtered more. So that's another benefit you see. I usually see less cholesterol in these as well too, which makes sense. They are being filtered more. So kind of going back to the absorption rate, if you're really using your proteins as a meal replacement, concentrates might actually be better for you than an isolate. This is really going back to the blood sugar spike we talked about. Concentrates don't spike blood sugar as much because they absorb slower. But the downside is with that is they usually contain a little bit more lactose. So therefore, if you're sensitive to lactose, you can see a reaction with that. But going back to whey concentrates, again, they do retain more peptides naturally, and they also seem to actually satiate people's diets better too. So they do kind of hold you over for longer. But if you really want to be held over, that's where the whey casein comes in. Now, whey casein is the slowest absorbing protein. It usually has less amino acids as well too. That being said, the amino acids it does have stay in your system much, much longer. So whey concentrate, the studies I've seen, about 5 hours is where the amino acids and blood levels return to normal. Whey isolates is usually about 3 to 4 hours, whereas whey casein can be about 7 hours at its longest. So what that means is you have a elevated amino acid level for about 7 hours. But if you're running a protein that holds you over for a long time, caseins are really, really good for a meal replacement. I also see them used before bedtime for people as well too that want an extended release protein, basically, is what they function as. So the two major downsides of casein is it contains a lot more lactose because it contains more milk protein than just whey protein. Whey protein is usually a pure protein. Milk protein has a lot more lactose in it. So that causes a slower absorption rate. It causes a lower amino acid profile. It also can cause more people to have a bad response to that as well too. So while casein is great for a meal replacement, it's really good at making you feel full. It's not very good post-workout or before workouts just because of how heavy it can be. That's about it for the whey proteins. There are other ones too I'm not going to get into. The next one I actually want to talk about, which I'm a huge fan of, is egg white protein. So whey proteins are complete proteins. That means it has all the essential amino acids. The essential amino acids and the non-essentials we'll get into in the next video. You can see the importance of those next. I just want to cover the basics for each protein before we get into the amino acid profile, which gets more complicated. So we're kind of layering it. We're slowly getting more complicated as we go. So one of my favorite proteins for a lot of reasons is egg white protein. So egg white protein powders are also complete proteins. They are lactose free because they're not coming from a cow. There's no dairy involved. They're usually much lower in fat. Most egg white proteins naturally will have 0 grams of fat, but if they're adding any flavoring in, sometimes the flavoring itself can add in fat as well. So it can still have fat, it's usually way lower naturally compared to whey proteins. There can be carbs, but a lot of this comes from the flavoring. So again, you have to look at each protein. It's going to vary. I've noticed, regardless whey, egg, vegan, soy, that chocolate usually seems to have more carbs and fat, whereas vanilla usually seems to be a little bit better. Those are very, very small differences. It's not a huge difference. So a pure egg white protein won't have any fat or carbs, but if it's flavored, it will. And trust me, you don't want an unflavored egg white protein. Now, most egg white protein doesn't have any cholesterol naturally as well, so it's another huge benefit. It doesn't have any cholesterol naturally in it. A lot of whey protein does. What we see the difference between a whey protein and an egg white protein. As far as building muscle mass, the differences really aren't measurable. So what I mean by that is they both have their benefits. They've both been shown to help increase muscle mass and help recover post-workout. But the difference between an egg white protein and a whey protein really aren't measurable in a lab, which is meaning that the differences between the two are within a normal error range when you're recording data. So there's no right or wrong between the two. The reason I prefer egg white protein is really the amino acid profile is usually much better than whey proteins. Now, with all the technology in place, it's very easy to actually adjust those amino acid profiles in whey protein to add in more. Egg white proteins, though, seem to carry a natural amount of amino acids that are usually higher in comparison to other proteins. Regarding naturally occurring proteins, so looking at naturally occurring whey protein and naturally occurring egg white protein, egg white protein does have a higher amino acid profile, so it makes sense that most egg white protein powders have a higher amino acid profile as well too. So again, these differences aren't really measurable at all. The reason I prefer an egg white protein is the amino acid profile, the fact that the fats and carbs are usually much lower, and it's just usually a lot cleaner protein, so I prefer it. It is a little bit more expensive than a whey concentrate. That being said, though, it's usually not as expensive as a whey isolate. Depends on the brand, though. Just like with anything, I have seen egg white proteins that have kind of got a little costly as well. So regarding the last two, I want to make this very clear with vegan and soy protein that these are really general things I'm talking about in regards to certain facts. So a vegan protein might not necessarily be a specific brand. So you'll see, usually with vegan proteins, it's a blend. So you might see a blend of soy protein, rice protein, pea protein, hemp protein, all different kinds of plant sources. So most vegan proteins, not all, are usually cholesterol free. There can sometimes be fat. It's depending on what they're adding in. It's depending on flavoring. Most plant-based proteins by themselves, except for soy protein, are incomplete. So what that means is they don't have a complete list of the essential amino acids. So it means you're not going to be able to get all your needs. However, if you're doing a blend, the greater the blend, the more likely it is to be a complete protein. Now, soy protein is a complete protein, which we'll touch on in just a second. So going back to vegan real quick, if you do buy a vegan protein, it has a lot of benefits. They usually contain a lot more antioxidants because of the plants they're containing. They usually contain more nutrients and minerals than a regular protein as well too. Again, this is going back on depending what companies are adding in their protein. So my tip with a vegan protein is if you do want to choose a vegan protein, I would recommend getting a higher blend. So getting as many variants in there as possible. So, pea protein, hemp protein, rice protein, there's tons of them out there. The more blends it is, the more likely it is to have a better amino acid profile. So now to touch on soy. And I'm going to link soy back to vegan protein in just a second. But soy protein is a complete protein as well too. It's one of the most common alternative sources to a animal-based protein. So regarding whey, egg whites, there's also beef proteins out there. I'm not a huge fan of those. I don't think they're very cost-effective. The amino acids aren't the best. They do contain creatine, which does have its benefits. But jumping back to soy protein is lactose-free, so that's a huge benefit. It is a complete protein. The problem is it contains the isoflavonoids. So what those do is they can increase the hormone estrogen, which, as most guys are terrified of, they don't want to do that. For women, it can be a health concern as well too if you do have too high of estrogen levels. That being said, though, if you're just using the soy protein as a protein shake, It's usually not a concern. Usually the concern comes when you have a very heavily based soy diet that also includes soy protein shakes. If you're just doing a soy protein shake once a day, you're not really going to see the detriments of that. However, if you are taking a soy protein shake multiple times a day, you're eating all the soy in your diet, drinking soy milk, that kind of stuff, then that can add up over time, and that can cause a spike in estrogen levels. So that is something to be aware of. Soy protein is not a bad protein at all. It does have a bad rep because of its chance to increase estrogen, though. So jumping back to vegan proteins, some vegan proteins contain soy. So again, with what I just said, that's something to be aware of. So there's a lot of different sources of protein here. I know it's a lot of information. So if you guys have any questions on this at all, feel free to let me know. I wanted to cover the basics of each and really break a couple myths. So regarding isolates for weight loss, might not be the best thing depending on when you're taking that protein. I also want to touch on the casein proteins, which most people aren't aware of, which are really, really great to keep you full. When you drink them, they're very, very thick. They usually taste really good too because they are so thick. But again, if you have any lactose issues, you do want to stay away from that. And then regarding the soy proteins and vegan proteins have a really bad rep most of the time. That's really in regards to the fitness industry. They usually kind of wave them off and kind of say they're crappy proteins. They're not crappy if you have the right blend and if the company makes them right. But you can also mess up a whey protein. So, just because the source might not be the best, it really depends on what the company does after it and what they're adding in, and if they're making a good blend. I want to talk about these because each protein is going to have a specific goal, and the protein will accomplish different things. So since each protein has a specific goal and each of you have different goals, it's really important to align that protein with what you're trying to do. So, for example, if you're trying to lose weight and stay full, and you're drinking an isolate, and that's it, and you're not adding any peanut butter or anything like that to it to really help hold you over, you're going to be hungry, you're going to have cravings, you're going to want to eat stuff you shouldn't be eating. So in those cases, a casein might be better. Now let's say you're trying to lose weight and you're working out really hard. Isolate is great post-workout to help you recover. If you find out, hey, I think an isolate's going to be the best thing for me, I'm looking at this isolate, it's only 60% protein, what the hell's going on? That's an issue. Isolates usually are some of the higher percentage of purity in proteins. So if they've added so much flavoring that is thrown off, then it's not going to benefit you as much. So I really want you guys to take what you learned in the last video, apply it to this. So this way you can align depending on your diet, depending on your own needs, because people react differently. Some people can't have whey protein. That's just what it comes down to. If you guys have a protein that you want me to look at for you specifically with your own goals, reach out to me. My email's right down below. I always keep an eye on it. I'll respond the same day. And if you guys have any questions at all on proteins I like and that I recommend, feel free to reach out. I'm not going to say one on here because there's different people watching the video and you guys all have different goals. So I can't say, oh, I take this protein because I'm sponsored by it. It's awesome. I'm not sponsored by any protein. I really want you guys to achieve the best results and have something that's customized to your own diet and your own goals, because that's what you need. You don't go to the doctor and expect to be given the same prescription as the guy that walked in before you that had a completely different disease and a completely different lifestyle. That's not right. If any company ever tells you this is the protein you need because this is our best protein we have, you need to stop and ask, is it the best protein you guys have, or is it the best protein for me? Because each of your goals are different and independent. It should be the best protein for you, not the best protein that they have. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to help out, and I'll be talking to you